For those of you who have not heard of the SCP Foundation is responsible for capturing and containing various paranormal, supernatural, and other mysterious phenomena unexplained by mainstream science, referred to as anomalies or SCPs. That stands for Secure, Contain, and Protect, so they do this while also keeping their existence hidden from the rest of global human society. These are the top 5 scary SCP containment breaches. Let's jump in. In at number 5 we have SCP-1048. Imagine your childhood teddy. Cute, right? Now imagine if it could move around and communicate through little gestures. Might sound a little creepy, but it could also be your childhood dream. Well, that is what SCP-1048 is. It's a sentient teddy bear that looks as ordinary as any other teddy. It can move around, dance, jump in place, and give hugs. Of course, it was only observed to give little hugs to the SCP staff's lower legs because of its small stature, but adorable nonetheless. And I know what you are thinking, all of this sounds very endearing. Allegedly, in 2 separate events, 1048 drew pictures for janitorial staff just like a small child would. As you would imagine, the affection 1048 gives is received positively by pretty much everyone at the Foundation. When it comes to more advanced or direct communication with 1048, the Foundation has not yet been successful. While the teddy-like SCP can give a yes or no in vague gestures, anything more complex than that isn't met with anything helpful. Does this teddy not want to talk, or does it have intelligence about on par with a toddler? That is yet to be discerned. Staff tried to get it to use its art to try and communicate, but for whatever reason it didn't work. So while we don't know where this SCP comes from or who or what they are, 1048 has not appeared to be a threat. Because of that, it was allowed to roam the facility freely. Unfortunately, the location of the little teddy is no longer known, so protocol states if you see 1048 wandering around, secure it for containment. If you see some art 1048 left behind, eradicate it unless a future protocol change stipulates otherwise. No teddies are allowed in the facility until 1048 is found. If you see anything that looks like this one, report it immediately. In at number 4 we have 1440. This containment failure is less cuddly than the last one, but it is another SCP that doesn't have a scary appearance, only scary effects. 1440 is just a man. The Foundation doesn't know his ethnicity, age, name, or where he came from. When anyone has tried to ask, he won't answer. Could be because he is refusing to disclose any personal information. On the other hand, he himself may not know the answer to any of these questions. Looking at him, he looks like he is in his 80s, but he hasn't aged a bit since the Foundation first spotted him. The anomalies don't stop there. If 1440 stays around humans or man-made objects for more than a few days, destruction somehow occurs. Foundation personnel have documented it as an acute adverse effect on everything connected to humanity. The destruction of said people or items will increase in tandem with the amount of time spent near 1440. Whatever event causes this is unknown, but prolonged exposure to 1440 will lead to the death and or eradication. SCP-1440 and its possessions are safe from this, but we don't know why. If you're curious, it carries a sack, a pack of playing cards that have been worn down from use, and a glass cup. A small mercy is that 1440 tries to avoid human populations, likely because it is aware of what happens when it comes near them. Oddly though, 1440 travels in a complex pattern for an unknown reason. This pattern leads it to humans again, and we still don't know enough about the pattern to warn them. As I said before, 1440 isn't helpful with information, but it isn't actively hostile and complies with containment. Due to this adverse effects it has on humanity, any attempts to contain it have failed and led to many fatalities. It's currently uncontained, out there roaming around. Protocol calls for surveillance and a focus on learning more about its travel pattern in hopes of warning civilians that may end up in its path. Containment is not a priority until the Foundation is not at risk of losing resources and personnel. So maybe if you see an old man avoiding you, best to let him be. In at number 3 we have SCP-3445. We can find this next SCP in Colorado, or we could until it disappeared. 3445 was located in Peak Cemetery near Aurora in Colorado. Why a cemetery? Well, this SCP is an unmarked gravestone with some unique qualities. It's quite large, about 2 meters tall, and the state of wear and tear leads Foundation staff to believe it was made in the late 30s or early 40s. There are 4 openings at the top of it, and it has no markings, with the exception of a symbol that looks like a dollar sign carved in its center. My mind goes to this being a stone slots machine, but that is not the case. If you put the money in one of the openings up top, specifically $1 or $5 bill, the bill vanishes. 5 minutes later, a small note card will appear in the same spot. Personnel have not disclosed what is on the note card, if anything. Due to it being a gravestone, 3445 was contained on site. The guards placed on duty disguised themselves as local groundskeepers and were set to work 24/7. They are now believed to be dead, and 3445 4445 is missing. The Foundation is now searching for the missing SCP. If spotted, report immediately and do not interact. You'll just lose money anyways. In at number 2 we have SCP-096. This SCP recently is a high priority to contain after it escaped. It's 2.38 meters tall or 7 feet 8 inches tall. It's a humanoid figure. It's pale, hairless, and thin to the point its skin stretches across its body. Save for its arms and jaws, 096 is fairly proportionate. Its arms are nearly 5 feet long and its jaw is 4 times as big as the average person. And that's not all that's off about the face of this SCP. The eyes have no color. It's as if the white of the eye never ends. There is no pigment there at all, no iris, no pupil, or white. That being said, the Foundation has not confirmed if 096 is blind. As for intelligence, the Foundation noted it does not show any higher brain functions beyond locating its victims. When this SCP was contained, it spent the most of its days pacing. It favored the eastern wall of its containment chamber. The reason for this was not specified. If any individual sees the face of 096, it immediately becomes unfathomably distressed. It will try and hide its face with its hands while its screams and cries pierce through the air. This will continue for a minute or two before it stands and runs right for the individual that caught a glimpse. I must be clear that nothing, absolutely nothing can or will stand in this SCP's way. Any impediments to 096's path will be gotten through at any means necessary. Notes are not clear about how that happens or if it gets to victims through destructive means. Whatever the case, once 096 gets to its target, they are eradicated, and 096 always gets to its target. It is assumed 096 eats its victims due to the lack of remains. After this, it becomes docile once again and will try to return to its natural habitat. Where the habitat is has not been documented or shared, most likely for the safety of those curious enough to try and find it without Foundation resources. The last time someone saw its face in containment, they left the facility. Soon after, 096 left the facility in search of its victim and has caused many fatalities ever since. The Foundation lists the containment of this SCP as high priority. And finally, in at number 1 we have SCP-049. The Foundation was investigating disappearances in Montauban, France, where they found 049. At first glance, it seems 049 dresses like a medieval plague doctor, but since then the Foundation has observed that these garments have grown from 049's body over time. When he was found in France, he was surrounded by people he had turned into SCP-049-2. This classification is given to victims of 049's experiments, as they are essentially reanimated corpses. 049 watched and took notes as the Foundation exterminated the zombie-like people around him, and then he surrendered. While in Foundation custody, 049 was provided with mammals to experiment on to keep him calm as a means of compromise. He was very cooperative for a time. During his stay, Dr. Raymond Ham spent a lot of time interviewing and studying 049. Ham considered him a friend, but in April of 2017, 049 became agitated and attacked Dr. Ham during an interview. Security was not alerted and Ham was turned into 0492 within 3 hours. Due to this, 049 has been flagged as a higher risk than before, and any evidence of cooperation is questioned. 049 fled facility grounds during a mass containment breach. Documents allege that 049 came across 353 during the breach and the two fell in love and escaped during the chaos. Like 049, SCP-353 is considered highly dangerous. Attempts to contain either or both SCPs have failed so far and had many casualties, but the Foundation will continue to try. Well, there we have it, the ones that got away. Do you guys agree with that list? What SCP scares you the most? I think the Teddy. Who knows what that one is truly capable of? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And until next time, I'll see you later.